Hey everyone, it's Jonathan and welcome back to the Disney TV Marathon. Today is part 2 in our look at the classic 90s Disney Channel show, Adventures in Wonderland. Last time we did a deep dive into all the characters in the show, and this time Jenna chose a bunch of episodes for us to focus on, starting with the very first episode in 1992, and picking a few from each year of the show all the way up until the last episode in 1995.
So let's start with her story in the making, which is the first produced episode, but it was not the first aired, because you said you watched that one, right?
Yeah, I watched both of the ones that were the quote-unquote first episodes, just because first I watched the Her Story in the Making, and I was like, oh, this isn't really any sort of an origin story. Maybe the other one's an origin story. So I watched that, I was like, I guess they're just jumping right into things. There's no her first day in Wonderland or whatever. It just, she has Wonderland to go to. Whatever, it's fine.
It's kind of the same thing as like Alice's Wonderland Bakery, and I guess you'll see
Yeah,
this in a lot of kids' show where they never address like how she came there
yeah,
or how like things started. Though you could argue in other shows you don't really need to see like characters meet to know that they're friends, but in this kind of show, it's like it would be nice to know
hmm,
how she came about this. In particular, I would have loved, an origin episode because that'd be like even more Alice Wonderland to me.
yeah.
But they, as far as I know, they never ever did it. I did hear of because at first when I got into this show, 2011-ish, looking on the internet, there wasn't really a lot of information on the surface level of the internet. You'd have to like dig a little deeper, which I ended up doing later. Like, but just to give you a sample of like what I mean by there wasn't really that much information or even accurate information was because, like, for instance, it used to be when you look up Adventures in Wonderland, it would say it premiered in 1991. It did not premiere in 1991, it premiered in 1992. But
Mm,
for some reason, someone came up with the date 1991, and that's where what everybody else started running with.
yeah.
It wasn't until later where I found multiple articles, including the Disney Channel magazine, stating a 1992 premiere date, and like editing things like IMDb and Wikipedia that changed. Um,
Hmm.
though I remember it was weird because you would think the Wikipedia page for the show would be like barren, not maybe not barren, but like not actively looked at. But someone changed it back to 1991 after I changed it to 1992, and it's just like, what? Like you're paying attention to this and you're like involved enough to change it back to 1991, even though you don't have any proof that it's 1991. We had to include a source.
Yeah.
Um, but it was weird because they didn't have any source at all for 1991.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, so only a few of the episodes were on YouTube, and apparently there was a time period where somebody else created an episode list, but it was full of just completely made up episodes that don't exist. I think that was debunked because the episode list was found on Disney Channel's own archived webpage of episodes, which I also think is really interesting because their episode list actually is in production order, not in airing order, and they had that online. But anyway, so it's a lot of this information you had to dig a little deeper. Anyway, so my point. There was this one person who insisted that there was an origin episode or some kind of origin story because they remember Alice finding the mirror or something. It was like one person, maybe someone else agreed with him, but it was never substantiated, and I've never found anything like that.
I would think that there would be information somewhere if there was.
Yeah, I mean, like technically, we do know of quote unquote bonus content that is not available, or like extras. Okay, we know that Adventures in Wonderland went on a library tour at some point with the actual cast members going around. They would actually do kind of like a live episode where the Queen of Hearts discovers how wonderful libraries are and opens her own when she realizes that she can tax people, like fine people for returning their books late, which is kind of incongruent with the first episode of the show where she's shown to have library books
Yeah.
and knows what they are. But, it was a cute idea. That was never filmed. or at least that we know of. Maybe they might have filmed a promo for Disney Channel, but I've never seen anything come out of it. Then we know that they were on the inauguration celebration, which is missing. So basically, to celebrate the inauguration of the president at the time, I don't remember who it was. Clinton?
Clinton,
Um,
probably.
yeah, and it was for children. It was a children's inauguration celebration, and the Muppets were on it as well. And actually, a picture of it hit the front page news the next day with Kermit on Clinton's shoulder. I think it was Clinton. Watch it not be Clinton, and I'm just embarrassed. But anyway, I'm not into politics. And John Hoffman as the Hatter is like right behind him, barely visible. So they were a part of that. That was televised, but though I've heard of recordings, it's never shown up. I think some Muppet collectors supposedly might have copies. I kind of have tried to curiously look into it, but a lot of people asking about seeing it, and other people being like, oh, well, someone has it. And that's just kind of throw your hands up, like, what can you
Hmm.
do? And it's like, okay, not very useful information. Maybe I should look back into that and see if I could actually find someone who says they have it. But at the time, all I could see was like, well, I heard someone has it.
Hmm.
Apparently, there's kind of a Muppet lost media community, which makes sense. Anyway, we also know that after the show was over, I don't know why they did this, but at Epcot, how do I even describe this? I think it was part of what they call the Millennium Celebration. So it was like later 90s. This is a very strange concept. Okay, do you remember DVDs sometimes had like a choose your own adventure kind of like featurette?
Maybe nothing specifically, but I think I vaguely remember the concept.
So it was kind of like that, but Adventures in Wonderland themed and in person at Epcot. You'd be in front of a screen. There'd be like a video clips, and then you would choose an answer, and then something would happen, like a clip would play in accordance to the answer you chose. So there was that, and any footage of this at all was hard to find. I eventually finally found a piece of it, and I could confirm it was a thing. But weirdly, when you ask the actors, they don't remember it happening.
They probably filmed so many things that everything kind of blended together in their
No, no, what
minds.
happened is actually some of the actors were not asked to come back for this,
Oh, so it
bizarrely.
was like other actors
Yeah,
pretending to be them.
yeah. I think there was like a quick glimpse of Alice, and it's another little girl, which kind of makes sense because Elizabeth Harnois, toward the end of the series, shot up and she went into puberty already. Towards the end of the series, she actually had to wear like a binder because she was already starting to develop. So they had to get someone else to play the little girl, which is understandable, but she's wearing a pretty bad blonde wig. Um, the Cheshire Cat is there. So they had the puppet up to this point. So maybe they wasn't reskinned for Harmony.
There goes that conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I'm just realizing, oh wait, Spear Series Dad did it to myself.
He's probably lying in the Disney vault somewhere.
Yeah.
There's still hope for you to get your hands on him.
No, he's dead. I know he is. I can't have any hope. He's dead. Anyway, and then there was a glimpse of the Tweedles, and they are different actors completely. They are not Harry or Robert.
Hmm.
But anyway, they were supposed to be seen with the Hatter and Hare as well. But the one in particular I remember, I don't remember if there was a glimpse of this in the video clip I did manage to find. And now I don't even remember what her name was. Tammy. I remember her first name. Someone named Tammy did interviews with some of the cast afterwards. I think she had her own podcast website, whatever, blog. Um, and she remembers this interaction with it where you were supposed to guess the Queen of Hearts like favorite movie. The answer would be The Little Mermaid, and I actually really remember that. But the thing is, I never went to Epcot. I didn't go to Florida until I was an adult. So I'm like, I wonder if parts of this was aired, but it wasn't in the show. So it's very odd. You
Yeah.
have all these kind of like little things. We also know that they filmed special clips to air kind of as promos. Like in the bloopers, you see Armelia do like messing up a promo for the show that I've never been able to find.
Hmm.
In the advertisement for the Tweedles, who are like advertising the show in like a rap, it's kind of weird. I don't remember it. It seemed like it was for the public TV run of it. I don't know. There's all these like little bits and pieces that were missing, probably, and none of it's very clear. Also don't know most of the broadcast dates. I tried to look those up, and that was almost impossible. I've only been able to find a few broadcast dates
I noticed when I went to the wiki page, there's just a few that say a date and the rest say TBA.
to be announced. That's weird.
That yeah, I
Uh,
know. I thought that was like, why did they say TBA? Why not go with something else? But oh
unknown.
well, whatever.
Yeah, I the dates that are known are probably from me because at some point I tried to buy every Disney Channel magazine from that time period. And unfortunately, they did not announce every episode when they were going to air it. They announced a few of the special ones. So that's how I know some of the dates. I didn't put them on Wikipedia, though. I put them on IMDb. Maybe someone later edited the Wikipedia page to include those dates.
Could be.
Um, yeah, I never bought all the magazines. Maybe I should get back on that. But like, I own I'm like, I think I might own the largest collection of Disney Channel magazines right now. Um, anyway, where was I going with this? Oh, right. So tangent. Someone remembers an origin episode or story. I've never been able to find any proof of that, but it's not outside the realm of possibility. I also know that they filmed a pilot that was unaired, according to the actors.
Oh, I wonder if maybe that was. I did see a mention about an unaired pilot. I wonder if that was an origin story.
Maybe. Though it's kind of weird that they chose not to. Well, then again, it's like, okay, her story in the making is already pretty rough, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The characterizations, they're not bad, but they're not there either. It feels awkward, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, if they did a pilot, it must have been pretty rough. So that might be why they did it like this. I actually, though that said, her story in the making, I actually think is a great script. I wish that they had waited until later, until the characterizations were a bit better to have done this episode script.
Hmm.
Other than that, I actually think it's a really well written script. The only thing is it's just rough with the cast. When you're watching it, it feels like a dress rehearsal or something.
Yeah, I could see that. Because there were a few
Yeah,
moments where while I was watching it, I felt like the deliveries were not realistic. And I was like,
they weren't
oh no, is this
great.
how the whole thing is going to be? But then the after the next couple of episodes, it was way better.
Yeah, I was actually surprised that this was not the pilot because I know initially I thought this was the pilot, but then the cast said it wasn't, and I was like, oh, like okay, if you say so. It feels like a pilot.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been thinking of it like that when I watched it, but thinking back just specific little scenes where like the line deliveries, there was things that Alice said that it was very obvious that it was a kid acting, not
Yeah,
realistic enough.
yeah. I think at one point she just goes, "Oh," like
Yeah, stuff like that. But after that, the next few episodes, it was gone. So they they
yeah,
they got into their roles well quickly.
yeah. Anything else you want to say about that specific episode?
Well, didn't really talk about the music yet, and this could be for
Oh
any of
yeah.
the episodes. But well, first, the general music. I thought the music as I was watching it, especially towards the end, I was like, this feels like the Rugrats. And then I
Yeah,
looked up who did it. Same composer, Mark
it's the same
Mothersbaugh.
composer. Yeah,
Yeah,
I forget when was the Rugrats made? Was it before? I guess it was before
around the
this.
same time. I don't know the exact date. I can look it up, but I know it had to have been early 90s because I remember watching, that probably could have been how I remember watching this too, because I would watch Rugrats when I visited my grandparents who did have cable. So maybe that's how I watched some of this.
1991, just a little bit earlier than this.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's kind of funny that like I feel like Rugrats was like peak '90s sound to me, like peak '90s music, and
kind of.
yeah,
Just there's some instrument in there that he must have liked. There's some electronic instrument that just it's so
synthesizer, I think.
instantly recognizable, but I don't know what
Yeah,
it is. It's some kind of a synthesizer, I'm sure.
yeah. So I think that's you call it like the incidental music,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and it's Rugrats. It's sound, To be honest, I kind of block it out by now. I don't really notice.
Oh, every time I heard that one instrument, it reminded me of the Rugrats, so I was very aware of it.
Yeah, I imagine. What did you think about the songs?
Well, the main theme song I loved. Like,
Oh, good.
as soon as it started playing, I was like, I both don't remember this and I do remember this. It was like I'm remembering something that I forgot eons ago.
Yes, I think it. I think the theme song itself feels very nostalgic.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I kind of get that. It like brings you a sense of nostalgia, even if you hadn't seen the show before.
yeah. I'm hoping that I can get away with putting it at the beginning of the podcast episode and not
Oh,
have
you'll
it
be fine.
dinged for
Disney has
copyright.
never removed anything Adventures in Wonderland on YouTube, strangely, even though
Okay.
they put it on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I loved the theme song. So I was like, oh, I really hope I can use this in the podcast.
Oh yeah, the cast also loved the theme song too. They thought the cast and crew they thought it was very impressive.
Yeah.
And personally, so like the music throughout the show, some of them are duds or just kind of like eh,
Yeah.
but some of them are really, really good. And I'll
Yes.
actually like sometimes find myself singing little bits of them just out loud in real life in public sometimes, you know. And it's just like, darn it, you know, just no one's gonna know what I'm singing about.
No, there was some that were pretty catchy. Like you
Yeah,
said, some were it was a bit of a mixed bag. Some were kind of duds, especially some of the earlier ones. But the more I
yeah,
watched, the more I noticed we're like, this is legitimately catchy.
yeah. Her star in the making. I'm trying to think, what were the songs in that one?
I don't remember, but there was the hip hop, whatever the Tweedles were doing.
Yeah,
That I wasn't really impressed with.
let's see. My notes are, I said the caterpillar story sucks. And I wrote the songs are barely okay. But in regards to like later, I think Dinner Fit for a Queen. One of the reasons why that's my favorite episode, I think, is because all the songs I think are solid in that one. So you know, you get a wide range.
Uh-huh. Which, to be fair, is that happens a lot with kid shows that have a lot of episodes and you have to have a lot of songs. They can't all be
Yeah,
winners.
yeah, and you're all like you're filming it all together too. It's like
Yeah.
that's it though. I liked these songs more than the songs in Alice's Wonderland Bakery. Except for the recurring songs in Alice's Wonderland Bakery, I thought all the other songs were pretty bad and really, really forgettable.
It's only been like 2 or 3 weeks since we recorded that episode. I am struggling to think of any music from Alice's Wonderland Bakery. It's already fled my brain.
I I still have Let's Bake and Food for Thought in my mind. Sometimes I will randomly sing those, and I think I've been permanently altered to not forget those. But it's but again, like the recurring songs, I think are the only good songs in that show. Whereas this one, I feel like it has a lot more good songs, but it's a lot more range where you might have just kind of eh.
Hmm.
But I still think the eh songs are above Alice's Wonderland Bakery's eh songs. So there's that.
Yeah, yeah.
But I might be biased, you know, so that's me.
Well, probably. But also I feel like I don't know, the weird synthesizery bits, like not that it was in every song, but I feel like that helps this stand out because Alice's Wonderland Bakery, they're more like poppy kids music, whereas this just
Yeah,
like, I mean, yes, it's kids music, but like it has that 90s flair that just, I don't know, maybe it's because of our age, but it feels like it's more memorable that way. I don't know.
I think for us, this show is going to be different for us because we grew up in this time period
Yeah.
where even like because the show is so 90s, and it has so many 90s like hallmarks.
Hmm.
Like for me, for instance, if I watched a show like with this kind of with the incidental music, and you know, like the colors and everything, and I had never seen it before as a kid, it'd feel like childhood to me
Hmm.
because of the similarities to things I had watched. Whereas if a kid like nowadays watched this, or a person who didn't grow up with the 90s, I don't know if they'd have like the same feeling.
Probably not.
Yeah, I really like this show, obviously, but I don't know if I would like it as much if I wasn't a 90s baby.
You probably would have to be a certain type of person because, like, for me, I grew up watching a lot of old stuff. Like, this, for some people, this would be something really old and ancient, like me watching something
Yeah,
from the 60s or 70s. But I liked watching old stuff. So, somebody who is born in the last couple of decades probably would get that kind of enjoyment out of a show like this.
Yeah, that's true. I will say also, I think the show is seeing a little bit more appreciation again, whereas before I think people were like, "Oh, this is so 90s," and then they just forget about it.
Hmm. I feel like the 90s are kind of coming back as an aesthetic. Like more and more people are watching stuff from the 90s
That's true.
just because they like that idea of watching something old, I guess. I don't know.
The 90s are the new 80s.
Kind of,
Um,
yeah. I've noticed stuff like from the early 2000s coming around and people talking like it's nostalgic throwback, and I'm like, what? No, not yet.
yeah, well, I expect things for the 2000s to come back, so I haven't been like too surprised at people being nostalgic, talking about them with their kids in 2000s.
Uh-huh.
Um, I'm gonna like throw up when they start talking about the 2010s though. So I'm like, no, that's what I graduated 2011. No, you're gonna make me feel old.
Oh, one more thing. Another character that we haven't mentioned yet, Dinah. I just like Dinah.
Oh yeah,
I love the cat. She's a really pretty cat.
she's very pretty. She does not look like she wants to be there though.
No, but I mean, it's hard to find a cat who would look really enthusiastic about all the stuff that probably was going on around her during the filming.
Yeah, Elizabeth, when she was, I think she was interviewed once. She said the cat had to be like tied to the pillow it would lounge on.
Oh
Um,
no.
yeah, I mean, she's a pretty chill cat, but she didn't really want to be there.
The most realistic part was when in the episode where she ran under the bed. I was like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, I think that's sort of like, yeah, that's what she wants to do. Elizabeth said she'd feel really bad for it. But she's a pretty cat. You ever think about actually animal actors in general? Like some of them, like I feel like dogs usually do better on screen than cats do, but
Yeah.
some cats are actually okay with it. This
Some
one,
cats are very chill. Some cats are very trainable. They'll do whatever you want.
yeah,
And other cats, they want to be left alone.
I remember watching the 1999 Alice and the Dino in that one. I guess I was watching it on YouTube at the time, illegal. Back when they used to upload it in parts of 10 minutes. And somebody in the comments said that is a very happy cat. And I hadn't noticed because I wasn't really that into, I hadn't had a cat as a kid.
Hmm.
I looked at it and it's like, oh, yeah, that does seem to be like a happy cat. And I don't know, now I like always notice cats in movies and I'm like, I wonder if it's happy. Like, that's it though. I think the Dinah one in this, part of what's going on here is that so they would do a bunch of these intros and outros in a whole batch,
That makes
like in
sense.
a day. Yeah.
Yeah.
And which makes filming sense. But from a cat's perspective, oh God, is that long?
Yeah.
You know, so I think the cat just would get tired and tired and just want to go home,
Hmm.
which kind of aligns with I had a friend who's visually impaired and she has a guide dog and she was in a show as an extra and they wanted her to have the dog with her. And initially the dog was really, really, curious and happy to be there. Uh, at some point, she disrupted the shot because she wanted to interact with a child actress. um, but anyway, eventually, I finally watched the show, like the episode when it comes out, and watched the clip that the dog's in. And I know this dog as a in person, and in the show, she looks like she's just done. She looks, like they've been redoing it over and over, and her tail's like low. She's like, I'm tired. So that was a very interesting experience to me because I knew the dog in person and was able to see it. Like, how funny.
Hmm.
But yeah. Oh, regarding the outro intro, I find Alice's room really interesting, and I wish I could find like more high def photos of it because I would love to see all the little details in it. Because from what I could tell, there seems to be some references. Like I think on one of her shelves, it looks like she kind of has a rabbit plushie that might have a bow tie and vest.
Hmm.
I've never been able to like get anything close up to really like distinguish it as, oh yeah, that's supposed to be the White Rabbit. But definitely like on her chest of drawers, she has like a yellow cat figure, which I feel like is very Cheshire Cat, even though
Hmm.
it's yellow. So yeah, I'd love to see pictures of her room.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. The picture quality was very 90s television. It was not HD.
Yeah, I'm kind of surprised at some of the things you can see. Like now, since it's been on Disney Plus, I could see scuffs on the sets from where the rabbit skates, um, which I wasn't able to tell before with the recordings. And I imagine it probably wasn't broadcasted like that. Like you would probably wouldn't be able to tell.
No, probably not.
Yeah, and one thing I found really interesting about watching it on Disney Plus is I think what the actor said it was filmed, but it doesn't look like it was filmed at all. It looks like it was taped. Though what might have happened was it was filmed and then put on tape to put the special effects on it. The claymation segments still look like they're on film, though. You could actually see the reflection of the glass planes now, which is kind of
Hmm.
interesting, or the shadows between the glass planes. I don't know if you noticed.
No, I didn't notice.
Yeah, you have to be a weirdo like me and really focus on it. But I don't know. I like those kind of like weird details that you can see. So anyway, it's always been a curiosity of mine to see Alice's room in more detail. But I doubt there's pictures. Or actually, there probably were pictures, but like I doubt they still exist somewhere. I imagine there were probably pictures for like production purposes to make sure things were in place.
They're probably in a file somewhere in the Disney vault.
Maybe that elusive Disney vault.
Well, they probably have somewhere where they store stuff like that.
Probably, though I have a hard time imagining that they wouldn't get rid of it. There were some set photos that we found on some of the set designers' websites, but nothing of Alice's room. To be fair, that's not the highlight set of this production.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we can move on to the first air to Arrivederci Aroma. So this one, I could see why they decided to air this one first. Not in the sense that it's a great story. I actually think the story is kind of but it's when the characterizations are like finally there.
Hmm.
It gets kind of if you watch episodes 1 to 4, they're still forming. But like I would say this one is like, oof, it's here. Here they are. So I could see why this was the first one they aired. So my quotes, I'm not my quotes, my notes are Hatter and Hare are hilarious in this one. I also think the songs are pretty good in this one. I have a fun antidote. So the part where they put on the nose pins because Alice smells like too strongly of perfume. The Tweedles and Hatter Hare put them on and go, ah. John, the Hatter, just kept laughing and laughing and and ruining every shot. He couldn't stop laughing. He thought he was gonna get fired. I think it's because so the shot where he kept messing up would be when the hair would say something to him, and I guess he just kept laughing at how Reese sounded with the nose pin on. uh, anyway, so fun antidote. It's actually in the bloopers. You can see it. Another note I have is so there's this scene where the Hatter is talking to the cat at the mailbox, and he like, oh, mail delivery is so slow, even though they have like almost instant mail. Um, and the cat says, "Don't be mad," and he says, "Oh, I have to. I have to. My mother said so." And I was like, that's like an implication of the Mad Hatter being like a title, right? And I thought that was kind of interesting because like Alice's Wonderland Bakery kind of has it like this too, where it's kind of like titles that are passed down. It seems like.
Mm.
Um, and it's like I guess that you could kind of see it in here too. It's like, Queen of Hearts, obviously, but he's like, oh, I have to be a Mad Hatter. It's in the family. And I wrote, um, it's a stupid plot.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
The queen should have known that she was spraying paint on herself long before she figured it out.
I mean, she should have known it wasn't a perfume bottle. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and Hatter and Harris should have realized they were spraying perfume instead of paint. It's a weird episode. Unfortunately, I also know that the Lewis Carroll Society they had filmed they had not filmed they had to record this episode on a VHS tape to watch at a meeting, and according to their newsletter at the time, they did not have a favorable opinion of the show. And I'm like, because it's like at this, obviously I disagree with them that it's not a, it's not a great show, but at the same time, I'm like, not a great episode to be introduced to,
Yeah,
especially if it feels barely related to Alice in Wonderland at all in that one.
yeah, definitely.
So then again, that's kind of a lot of this, but still,
Well, in terms of characterization, it doesn't really feel like the Alice, the classic characters from the book.
yeah,
But I think this is probably the reason why nobody's inconsistencies bothered me because, like, seeing this episode with the queen squirting gold paint behind her ears and not noticing, it's like, yeah, this is a kid show. I'm not going to pick this apart too much.
yeah. I mean, from what I understand, they literally wanted to feel like a cartoon.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of their goal. So I do know a little bit. I ran into Tom, one of the writers. So there's two writers for this show, and they actually won awards. They won Emmys for their script writing. He did tell me though, like so I was talking to him about the show, and he said I had a sign in my office that said nothing is too stupid.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, I kind of like it too, but I told him, like some of the plots would be, kind of stupid, but I feel like you're not like talking down to the kids when you're doing it. And that's part of what I like about it. Or you're like being stupid, you're being silly with the kids. And
That is
he
true because
agreed.
even though that whole thing with the squirt bottle not looking remotely like a perfume bottle was dumb, it didn't feel dumb in a way that annoyed me. It was dumb in a way that's like, yeah, it's a kid show, I'll just go with it. It didn't because there if it had been another show, I could see myself looking at that and being like, that is you why are you doing this? But it didn't feel like that to me with this.
Yeah, I think the characters are all a little bit dumb on purpose, but I think the big part of it is it doesn't feel patronizing.
Yeah.
I think. And then he also said like the character you talked about how much he loved the cast and how they would their characterizations actually like would inspire episodes. And I thought that was really cool. Like you don't really see that very well maybe
Yeah.
you do, but anyways, it was really neat to talk to him. I don't have any other notes for this one besides the songs are better. Oh, I did say the moral was kind of not clear. Like, what was it? Don't rush. Like, read the label. Not a clear moral. Which is kind of the interesting thing about this show is I do feel like a lot of the morals aren't very clear, or sometimes even might give the wrong moral.
I thought of that a couple times, but yeah.
Yeah. So like we'll talk about it later for one in particular, but I was like this one, I
I
don't
wonder
really
if
know
we're
what the
thinking of the
point of
same
it
one.
was. Yeah.
Is it the pie episode?
Yes, the pie theme.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get to it. Um, all right, Dinner Fit for a Queen, which is my favorite. So first off, it's already very 90s. It has the submit your home video. And I know
Very
that's
nice.
yeah, I know it's technically still a thing. I think America's Home Funniest Videos is still a
Is it
thing.
still going?
Yeah,
I
but
haven't
like
seen it since the 90s. The
yeah, that's the thing.
well,
It's
I
like
shouldn't say that.
it's
I probably watched it in the early 2000s too. But like Bob
yeah.
Saget was like the peak of that show.
Yeah. And it's like the thing of it is that it like just died. Like nobody watches these kind of TV compilations anymore.
I think the internet replaced it. Now everybody just puts them on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah, it's funny. I guess it's kind of funny because in a way it's like we went past the need for this kind of show.
Yeah.
You would think in a way that maybe they'd be more popular. I guess in a way, now thinking about it, I guess it's kind of evolved because there might be YouTubers who put together kind of something like this.
There is a show. I think somebody at work, like the place I work, like I film for a local cable channel, but we're a utilities company, so we got people coming in like linemen. But a lot of times, for some reason, they will put on a show. I think it's called Ridiculousness. It's like an MTV thing, but it's like a crass version of AFV.
Mm,
It's people sending in their home videos, but it's much stupider than funniest home videos.
Okay. Well, it's already kind of stupid, so that's surprising.
It's the same idea of people sending in their stuff, really stupid stuff, and then this panel of people just commenting on it.
Mm.
It's not for me, but it apparently it's still a popular format. Somebody turns it on. I don't think it's turned on accidentally. Somebody has to be watching it in there.
No, I think it's still a thing because like thinking about like especially like kids watch nowadays, like Sniper Wolf or something, or
Hmm.
Sniper Wolf. Um,
Yes.
it's basically kind of a quote unquote evolved modern day version of these kind of compilation shows of clips, right? Except now it's TikToks.
Yeah. I mean, some people do it better than others. I would say, like,
Yeah.
especially with her, I don't think she adds much to anything.
No, but YouTube loves her.
But some people do have genuinely interesting thoughts when they're watching that stuff.
Yeah. Commentary drop. I guess you could call it, it's more evolved. The idea of like a clip show is more evolved into a commentary genre.
Yeah.
Some people comment more than others.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, but it's funny because I think or America's Funniest Videos is still a thing.
Should look it up. As I haven't
Yeah,
seen it in years.
yeah. But anyway, so I don't know. For some reason, like it's very nostalgic for me because I remember watching that as a kid and being like, "Oh, I wish I could record something so funny and submit it." Um,
It's in its 34th season right now.
oh my gosh, who's still watching it?
I somebody has to. If they
Yeah,
keep redoing it, somebody has to. I wonder who's hosting.
but in a way, I think it's kind of interesting that they even set this up. Because I have always, as a kid, I did wonder like how would I feel if I was like one of the people being embarrassed in the clip and like somebody sent it in without like asking me if I was okay
I
with
would
it.
hate that.
Yeah.
I think I
Um,
even had that kind of a thought when I was a kid.
yeah, but I would hate it if at the same time like I kind of like wanted it. I wanted something to happen where I was involved, but not where I was the embarrassed one.
Yeah.
I don't know, weird, complex feelings. It's funny, but basically, this is what happens in the episode where the Tweedles submit a clip that somehow, some way, they did not notice that the Queen of Hearts is in the background, and even
That
though,
was the dumbest part of that episode when they said they didn't
yeah,
notice her, but like the camera was
they
following
literally
her.
follow her. They literally follow her like into the garden area. They're like, I didn't notice. But I think that was the inconsistency between like the filming of it and the script.
Either that or they just said that so they wouldn't get in trouble.
Yeah, that's possible. So I wrote, I think all the songs are really good. Big Time Bunny, Queen of Etiquette, Mumbo Jumbo Gumbo, and Nobody Likes to Laugh at Like the Clean. I actually sometimes sing Mumbo Jumbo Gumbo,
It
which,
is pretty good wordplay.
yeah, which is probably very confusing to people who might overhear me. Like, who had Mumbo Jumbo Gumbo?
In case you're wondering, Alfonso Ribeiro is the current host of AFE.
No idea who that is.
He played Carlton on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, okay. It's been a while since I've seen Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I barely watched any of it, but I know who Carlton is.
Yeah. So okay, I wrote so part of why I really really like this episode is because I feel like it has some really great scenes between the characters. So you have the scenes with the Tweedles and the cat when they're like testing the camera, and I love the Hatter hair gumbo scene where it's like, oh, we got nothing on the Queen's menu. Then my absolute favorite scene, the whole dinner scene's great, but the part where the Hatter goes, "How many legs does a cockroach have?" And the Queen's like, "What?" I was like 6, I think. And the hare smashes the cockroach on Hatter's plate. And he goes, "Great, hare. Now I'll never know." And then when the hare is distracted, he switches the plates. I love it so much. I think it might be my favorite scene in the whole show, just because it's so ridiculous. And I feel like everybody hits their line just right. And then the whole thing with the gum, which I think is actually kind of clever, like they're serving gumbo and the Hatter Hare put gum balls in it.
which
And
they don't even eat. They act like it's an ingredient, but you have to take it out.
looks like people forgot to use their gumball plates. It's ridiculously hilarious, and I love it all. I will say though, the moral is a little bit confused in this episode. So, like, okay, you would think that it would end. The moral would be don't care about what others think about you, or like just live your life, maybe, or maybe even like consider what you're doing if you're like recording
Uh-huh.
someone and submitting it.
Yeah.
None of that happens. Um, if anyone for some reason is watching this or needs a refresher or something, the tweet will submit a video of the queen accidentally. They don't realize she's in it. They think they're submitting a video of the rabbit, really. She gets embarrassed. She wants to submit a video to Wonderland's or royalties regal videos, whatever, about like how regal and beautiful, so she wants to make a dinner party. It goes obviously wrong because they're all nuts. Then at the end, it's like it was a disaster. And a rabbit happens to mention that they doubled the jackpot prize for Wonderland Silliest Home videos. And she's
Crippled.
like, or tripled, sorry. It's, yeah. And she's like, oh, we'll submit it there. And, it's kind of like, what? I guess the moral ends up being have a sense of humor about when things go wrong, which isn't a bad moral, but it's done in a very odd way.
The moral seemed more close to being have a sense of humor as long as somebody's paying you enough to be embarrassed.
Yeah, which is, to be honest, is in line with the Queen's characterization in this.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's very odd.
yeah.
I think it probably would have been better if, like, the absurdity just caused her to laugh at the end.
Yes, that would have been a clearer moral.
Yeah, and then just be like, you know what, like, it's not going to work out, but I ended up having fun or something.
Yeah.
And she realized to stop caring about what people think about her. But again, to be fair, it's in character for the queen to care about prize money. So I guess they thought that'd be funnier. I don't know. It's my favorite episode. It's not without flaws. Then we can move on to the next one, which was I Am the Walrus, which is the racism episode. So I just want to start with I always enjoy looking at racism episodes in children's shows because I always sounds very odd out of context. But the reason why part of why I like children's entertainment is because I'm interested in how they handle and teach these concepts to children.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes it is not done well. And sometimes I think it's very clever. This is an instance where I think they handle it very cleverly. Because obviously from the start, they wanted this to be a diverse Wonderland. I actually think it could have been more diverse because it's just black and white people. At some point, Hispanic culture is mentioned in another episode, but I don't think they don't ever bring someone on who's Hispanic, for instance.
Hmm.
I would say that is a little bit of a feeling of a show that it's just black and white. But that said, I actually recently looked back at some of the media I grew up with and was like, wait a second, this isn't very diverse. Like all the characters are white or something. So at the time, I think this was actually pretty a decent step to representation. So I appreciate from the very beginning that they didn't just want white characters, but they still wanted to talk about racism and exclusionism, discrimination. So they decided to include this walrus character as like an outlying character that they can discriminate against.
That also sounds bad out of context. They wanted to include a walrus character as someone they could discriminate against.
Well, I mean, I don't know why anybody watches without watching the show first, but in the episode, he becomes one of them. He becomes a Wonderland resident, and it all works out. But in the context of teaching a lesson about racism,
Hmm.
I think it was a clever choice
Yeah.
because you invite like a black character. Technically, he is a black man. It's always difficult in children's shows. I feel like because it's like sometimes it's beneficial to be more realistic and actually talk about skin color. But at the same time, especially if it shows for a younger demographic, you want kids of color to feel included in the main cast as well. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's kind of like I remember growing up with American Girl, and they have representation for black like little girls in their Addie character, who was an ex-slave who escapes slavery. And at that time period, they were a little bit more realistic about what fashions she would have worn. As a result, she was not a very popular character to buy
Mm,
because, like all the other characters were like white or middle class, they had more nicer outfits to buy.
hmm.
And when they relaunched the line, and they gave her some absolutely ridiculous outfits that she would have never realistically worn, or even anybody in that time period would have realistically worn, to be honest. But I remember seeing a comment someone made where it's like, I'm a black person, but I never wanted Addie because she never had anything pretty to wear. And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of understand that, right? Like
Hmm.
sometimes it is about the fantasy element and being included instead of like always 100% about realism. So I understand in the show they wanted to include kids of color into their Wonderland. So they introduced a fantasy species to be racist against. um, but anyway, I don't know. I think it's a clever way of handling it.
I thought it made sense for what they had because, I mean, like you said, the cast is relatively diverse. So it really wouldn't have made sense to bring on somebody who looked similar to somebody who already lived there.
Yeah,
And I like that they brought in a character that was actually from the book with
yeah,
the walrus. So yeah, I thought it made sense. I thought they
yeah.
did pretty well with that idea.
Yeah, I also like that touching a little bit more on the walrus. So Beware the Walrus is a song that they sing where they list all these different stereotypes that walruses do. And one of them is like lying. And when Alice meets the walrus, she thinks that he's lying to her because of the stereotypes she's been told. He's lying to her about having an invisible friend named Pinniped.
I
Um,
was curious, was there someone
yeah.
there?
So that's the interesting thing. Throughout the show and later episodes he's in, they kind of play with like, oh, Pinniped is an imaginary friend. But in one episode, he actually does cause something to happen, and it's
Hmm.
indicated Pinniped is actually there.
Okay.
Um, so that one is called Deface in the Crowd, if you ever did want to watch it. But I kind of enjoy that he has an invisible friend because I feel like it helps kids to accept that some people may have eccentricities,
Yeah.
but as long as they're not harming you and they seem nice, you should accept people.
Hmm.
Um, I also I've always thought that the pinniped is the carpenter too, so I've always just been happy with it. Um,
Oh, that actually would make sense.
yeah,
I mean, no, I suppose
though,
not with the name Pinniped,
yeah, that's the
but
thing. Pinniped does mean is the name of a seal, I guess. So
yeah,
that's a little confusing. I also don't think they ever explicitly say that he's supposed to be the carpenter,
no, well, at
but
least not in the one I watched.
yeah, not in that episode. But that's my fan theory. Even if he is a seal,
Hmm.
I'm like, he's a carpenter. Um, anyway,
He's a carpenter seal.
you never know. I also enjoy I feel like the part of why they chose the walrus was because they could reference the Beatles, which you have in the episode title, I Am the Walrus. I feel like Beware the Walrus, the chorus sounds a little Beatley to me.
I kind of wondered, but I'm not too familiar with the Beatles. I mean, I know that song, but I didn't know if it was deliberately referencing that through the music. I mean, obviously the title,
I
but
can't like cite myself, but I feel like it feels a little deliberate to me. Anyway, the queen is wonderfully tolerant in this. I really like her in this episode. So this is an episode where she's more of a authority caretaker figure,
hmm.
and she includes the walrus right away. And actually, I'm like, well, this is the queen being a good queen. She's welcoming everybody into her land.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's also helped by her actual like friendship with Ken Page. So they have a great chemistry off the bat.
Hmm.
I'm just gonna say it, Queen Walrus shipper right here. Um, oh, I thought one thing they did well in this episode was also like kind of compare mean versus not nice. Because at some point the characters decide, well, we're not mean, so we're not gonna like directly be mean to the walrus, but we're also not going to talk to him. And I thought this was interesting because it's like I feel like this I could see kids actually doing this.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, let's be real. Everybody probably does this. I do it, where it's like I don't want to be mean, but maybe I don't like someone, so I don't really specifically like talk to them.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not being exclusionary towards walruses, but I thought it was interesting that they did bring that up because while I believe people have the right not to talk to people, it is not nice to specifically not talk to someone because of what they are.
Hmm.
And I thought the songs in this were good as well. Welcome, Wonderland, Welcome, and New in Town. Oh, I thought the part I did right. I thought the part where they're having the party that says walruses and their friends only, and the rabbit like tiptoes past like the barricade, and the queen's like, "Rabbit, you step one toe past." It's like, and you'll be one sorry bunny. And he like, slowly he like retracts it out. It's I don't know, just funny, and that's all I wrote. And then I think the next one is Pie Noon. Actually, this one I did not write anything for because I kind of forgot about it. Um,
My thought is I was doing two different things and I started playing it and I was doing something else and then I started hearing something. I was like, is that Willie Nelson?
that's the funny way of realizing Willie Nelson is in this episode. Yeah. So this is the bullying episode, and yeah, they have Willie Nelson and Gilbert Gottfried in it.
Such
Um,
random guest stars for something like this.
yeah, I think this is my favorite celebrity episode. They have a couple. Gilbert Gottfried, I kind of understand because he kind of has a persona, like his persona sounds like a mean villain person or something. But I don't get why they brought on Willie Nelson.
I could not figure it out. He
Yeah.
by the end I was like, did they bring him on just so they could shove a pie in his face? It's like this is so random.
So for a little bit of context, this episode is inspired by the movie High Noon.
Well, I figured
Um,
that based on the title,
yeah,
but I'm not familiar enough with the movie to know
I have
what
not watched the
exactly.
movie. He's credited as a troubadour, so I don't know if there is a troubadour in that movie that maybe they're referencing to. Um,
Oh, it could be.
yeah, and they wanted a celebrity. I don't know why he's there, but it is pretty funny. Um, especially the scenes where he acts like he's a narrator and he's probably invisible, right? But sometimes he'll go through a scene and the characters are like, who is this? Like, they react to him being there, and
Hmm.
but he doesn't react back, and I just find that really entertaining. And at the end, they're just like, okay, has he been following us around all day? And they shove a pie in his face, and I think that's very entertaining. I also really like Gilbert Gottfried in this. He looks like he's having fun
Hmm.
because it's so stupid and ridiculous.
I
And he's
mean,
just,
that's kind of the perfect thing for Gilbert Gottfried.
yeah, he seems like he's really good at his I'm a Bully song. He looks like he's having a great time. It's just like, this is so stupid. Yes. Like,
I mean, if you're gonna
I'm a bully.
do a character like this who's going to sing something so blatantly on the nose, you have to get the right person, and Gilbert Godfrey is the perfect person for something like this.
Yeah, I love how he is in this episode. Just over the top, and you have to get the right actor for this kind of role, and I
Uh,
think he's the right one. Also, he looks pretty styling in the black cowboy outfit, and I love the part where he pulls out progressively bigger combs for no reason. It's it's ridiculous, and I remember the songs being pretty good in general as well. But on to like the actual meat of the episode. So obviously this is the bullying episode, which is something a lot of kids face in real life. A lot of even adults face it. And you know, it's always a struggle because if you're a non-confrontational person, you just want it to stop, but you don't know how.
hmm.
Um, And I feel like it's way harder for kids because they absolutely have no coping skills at all. So this
Hmm.
episode kind of goes through like different methods to use. So the first one is the hair gets is his friends are going to support him, but then they chicken out because he says he could pie them all, like which is kind of ridiculous. It doesn't make sense, but still, I actually am okay with what happens when they chicken out because I feel like that probably happens a lot to kids in person,
Yeah.
which is sad, but it is kind of a truth that people do chicken out of helping with bullying. Then the next method is Harry doesn't think of this himself. He's actually trying to leave. He passes by the house and the Queen and the Rabbit, talk to him. And the rabbit mentions reading Playground Monthly or something, which is, I'm like, huh, he's into child psychology, I guess. And that the right thing to do is to tell an authority figure, and that the Queen would be the authority figure. And then she ends up chickening out too because she doesn't want to be, or not dismissing him at least, because she doesn't want to have hair around her all the time. And this is the part where I'm like, well, the moral of this episode kind of falls flat on its face because are you essentially telling kids here that adults won't be interested in helping you?
Mm.
Like, I kind of get it at the time that they want it so he confronts his bully, but at the
Hmm.
same time, I am a little bit concerned because this would be the right answer to dealing with a bully in real life would be telling an adult.
Yeah.
um, and they don't handle it well.
Well, I guess playing devil's advocate, sometimes that's going to happen in real life too, sadly.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I guess I'm a little bit afraid of like giving kids the impression off the bat that they're not
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
help.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think probably what I think would have been better would be if one of his friends or maybe the cat or something had said, "Why don't you tell like the queen or something?" And he goes, "I can't snitch." Because that's also something kids do in real life. They're like, "I can't
Hmm.
tell an adult because then everybody will know I'm a snitch and they'll be bad." Uh,
Hmm.
and I think that would have been interesting. And then at the end, the queen could be like, "I wish you had told me." But you do have a point. That also happens in real life. Some adults do dismiss bullying, which is heartbreaking, but it's true.
Hmm.
But I am a little concerned about going off the bat, like, hey, adult might not stand up for you, and
Yeah.
I don't think we should like tell kids that might happen. But yeah, I do see why they wanted Harry to confront the bully because that is kind of what people end up having to do is confront their bullies.
Hmm.
Anyway, so it's a bit of a confused moral. I will say everybody, all his friends do end up helping him at the end.
That's the part where I was thinking the moral was a bit confused because it seemed like they were leading up to, and like they were leading up to him like taking the high road and not returning in kind the bullying that he was receiving. But then they not necessarily walk that back by having his friends come in and attack the bully instead. But it seemed like a bit of a mixed message. Like, yes, you don't want to bully or bully back, but also it's okay if somebody does it for you.
Yeah, it is a mixed message. I will agree with that. Um,
I think they just really wanted the bully to get some comeuppance.
it's pies. You always want the bully to be covered in pies. I think that's just like the law. If there's pies involved, the bully must be pied multiple times. Um,
And also Willie Nelson.
yeah. And someone happens to be singing and playing the guitar, you also must pie them. Um, anyway, so it is a confused moral. I also agree with you on that. It's a confused episode. In my opinion, it's a good episode, but it's also a bit confused.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think after that we just have, or at least the one I recommended was the Duchess episode.
Yeah.
So the Duchess episode, just the facts, man. I chose this one because I think it's just better than the other Duchess episodes. I was in between this one or the royalty trap. I know you can't really weigh in because I imagine this is the only Duchess episode you saw.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
But I feel like a lot of the Duchess episodes are kind of rough. Like the plots are just not very good or interesting, or she's like not at the heart of it. Like one episode, the queen is broke and needs to sell the hop diamond that she has, and the Duchess wants to buy it, but she doesn't want to give it to her. But she's not at the heart of the episode. The royalty trap is she's a little bit more at the heart of the episode. I don't know. I chose this one because I feel like it characterized the Duchess just fine, and I just feel like it's a better plot compared to the other ones. In regards to plot, I thought this one was also it was an interesting plot because basically the moral ends up being you shouldn't just like do what everyone else says because it's fashionable or trendy or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, you should just wear what you want, for instance. And the Duchess is characterized as following these trends, and the Queen accidentally follows clown advice. um,
I don't know why I liked that sentence. The queen accidentally follows clown advice.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, that
Um,
is what happened, but
yeah. Again, very 90s. We have a fax machine in this one.
that was going to be my main note from the episode. It was like a fax machine. It's like, yeah, I guess that would have been the height of technology at the time. But I love how they bedazzled her fax
Yeah.
machine.
How do we make this look a little bit more fantasy? Um,
Heart diamonds, jewels, glitter.
yeah. I really like the song they sing at the end about there's no style like your own style. I also thought it was kind of interesting that the rabbit was able to help the queen turn around while she was wearing a clown outfit. And then even the Dutch was like, yeah, it's just like, I agree. It's silly. you know? So I think that leads us to the last episode of Wonderland Howl Oline, which we could also kind of tangentially talk about the last episode.
The other last episode that we
Yeah,
didn't watch.
yeah, that we can't watch.
Yes.
So let's talk about the Halloween episode. So this one and let's just say it, White Rabbits Can't Jump, which is the one was supposed to be the 100th episode and the last one. For some reason, though, like even though A Wonderland Halloween was not meant to be the last one, they made books for this one and White Rabbits Can't Jump. I don't know why. And it looks like Wonderland Halloween also had kind of more of a budget or effort into it. We have some special sets that aren't used again.
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on A Wonderland Halloween?
Well, I was thinking that that one was supposed to be like the series finale, and that was why they had a little bit more, I don't know, production value put into it, and had the caterpillar moving out beyond where he usually is.
I mean, they sometimes have the caterpillar move out. I'm pretty sure White Rabbits Can't Jump was meant to be the last one, but I'm not 100% sure on that. They're both definitely the last two.
Hmm.
So I guess it was, either way, it was like part of their final move. It's hard to say because we can't see one of these episodes,
Yeah.
but they were meant to air around the same time, I think. Well, Wonderland Halloween obviously would have been around Halloween. It's kind of weird. They actually have two Halloween episodes, but the other one isn't distinctly Halloween, whereas this one is. Anyway, to be honest, I don't really care for the Halloween episode. Ironically, it's the one episode that I can remember very distinctly watching as a kid. I remember the Tweedle song, like the Swamp Stomp, like actually watching that.
Hmm.
But I can't really say I care for anything in this episode. Do you have any thoughts?
Nothing really sticks out to me, although it was the very last one I watched and I was very tired, so
I don't know. I feel kind of bad because obviously they put a lot of work into this one, but I don't know. I didn't feel it. I guess seeing Phantom of the Opera, like the Hatter as the Phantom of the Opera, was kind of funny. I do like Phantom of the Opera, but I didn't. I never felt that one. Should we just talk about White Rabbits Can't Jump?
yeah.
Okay. So if anyone listening to this doesn't not know, White Rabbits Can't Jump was meant to be the 100th episode of Adventures in Wonderland, but it never came out because O.J. Simpson guest stars in it, and he ended up doing a thing, and
Doing a thing.
something happened. I don't know how much in detail we want to get.
I think everybody knows he was on trial for murder, so
Yeah,
I, I think
I,
just mentioning that O.J. Simpson was going to be the big guest star is probably enough to get people to know, like, yeah, that's why they wouldn't air that one.
yeah, it's interesting that that they did this because I think in interviews they also thought it felt like it was the biggest guest star they ever got was O.J. Simpson.
Oof, that's a bit sad.
Yeah, oof. Yeah, and for me, it'd be Gilbert Gottfried, but I guess he wasn't as well known at that time as O.J. Simpson would have been.
It's weird that they would consider O.J. Simpson to be a huge guest, and maybe it's because I was so young when this would have aired, but like I have never known O.J. Simpson other than the guy who killed somebody.
That's the thing. Like, I think we were both children when this would have been aired,
Hmm.
so I only know O.J. Simpson from the murder trial.
Yeah.
I didn't know him as a personality before that or any of his media.
I have to remind myself that it used to be a sports star. Like,
Yeah,
because just to me, the name is synonymous with a murder trial.
yeah,
I completely forget that he used to be a star other than the fact that he was part of that high publicity, everyone was obsessed with trial.
yeah. I mean, well, he was also like a personality. Like people liked him. It's weird to say, but he was very wholesome. People thought he was a good person, and he wasn't convicted or anything. But you know, it's we have feeling. Uh, um, but you know, it's kind of at the time, like he was in the peak of his career. He was going on, you know, like people knew him for him, not just sports. Like
Hmm.
I think he guest started quite a few things at that time. But anyway, this was like the first, like the closest to the murders,
Hmm.
and so I was actually able to confirm. So there's always been some online when you know there's barely anybody knowledgeable about the show. There's always been some kind of like confusion about when you know like when this was meant to air and how close it came to airing. And I always felt like the book kind of indicated it must have been pretty close to airing.
Well, when I found out there was a book, I was like, this, it must have been really close to have a book in production that came out and then they canceled the episode. It must have been.
I've been able to confirm that yes, it was actually they were going to air the episode. It was ready to go. Then the murders happened and they had to pull the books. So yeah, it was supposed to air pretty close to when the murders happened.
Hmm.
I didn't get a date, but you know, I think it's kind of one of those things where it's people don't remember what date it was supposed to air.
Hmm.
So Adventures of Wonderland has kind of like now become a lost media darling in a sense, just because people really want to see this episode. But originally there was a confusion about whether this episode did air, and it just you know nobody recorded it because then the murders happened. But no, it never aired. It was supposed to air,
Hmm.
and the episode was complete. It was fully finished. It just didn't air. I also will say I know that it technically exists because you know obviously people wonder if Disney threw it out or something, but I was able to confirm that it exists, and we'll probably never see it.
I would assume so, but
Yeah,
you have to imagine somebody's got it in a vault somewhere, and maybe someday someone will unearth it and secretly upload it to the internet.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I maybe this is just a personal thing of mine, but I kind of don't want the show to become murder memorabilia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which is pretty close to. I feel like a lot of people, even though the show has gotten a bit more recognition since the defunct TV episode, which by the way, they actually used a lot of the research I'd started, and they did their own research as well. But a lot of my research was included in it. That was weird to watch. uh, but anyway, so like the show got more is getting more recognition now, and more people are more interested in finding this lost episode. But I guess I'm kind of annoyed because I don't feel like they're looking at it for the right reasons. I don't know. Does that make sense? For instance, I haven't heard any of them mention like there's missing bits of the episodes on Disney Plus because I don't think they're that intimately interested in the rest of the show.
Hmm.
It's just this one episode they want. Anyway, oh, I guess I could talk about the book.
Oh, yeah.
So the book is I do have it. It's a thin paperback, and it's basically essentially Rabbit is hesitant to participate in the leap year games. I think it's leap year games because he's not very good at jumping, which is ironic because he's a rabbit.
And also he's athletic in other ways anyways.
Yeah, it kind of is funny because he is, he rollerblades. He is athletic, but anyway, he's nervous about participating because everyone expects him to be a good jumper, but he's not. And then OJ Simpson comes to him, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, are you really here?" And he's like, "No, I'm not. I'm in your, I'm in your imagination. You're imagining me." But he helps him to become a better jumper, and OJ plays himself, by the way. And then I think OJ is actually at the end of the episode where they actually do have the leap year games, and he's supposed to be himself there. It's kind of a weird idea for episode, but it's hard to tell how it would have come together. Like maybe it would have been great.
I mean, it sounds par for the course because at that time you had a lot of weird random guest stars for like no reason
Yeah,
on sitcoms. Like you'd have some big star show up and they'd be somebody's aunt's cousin or whatever.
yeah.
It's just randomly. Like I think this is a fictional version, but like Steve Urkel from Family Matters showed up on Full House one time and he said that he was the cousin of like the only black friend that she had, which is kind of hilarious.
Yeah,
This is just like make the thinnest of connections that you could make to have an excuse to bring on a big guest star. That seems like par for the course for the 90s. That
yeah,
happened all the time.
yeah. I mean, I will say at least it looked like the episode was like relevant to OJ being a sports star
Yeah.
and him encouraging Rabbit to practice and stuff. So I guess like out of all the guest star plots, it's not the worst. I do think it's kind of funny that they actually put it in that he is not really there. He's just imagining him.
It
Um,
reminds me of the character of Gusteau from Ratatouille, the
yeah,
ghost, who's not really a ghost, it's really just Remy's imagination.
yeah, kind of basically that. He's Gusto. Um,
Ratatouille was inspired by the lost O.J. Simpson episode of Adventures in Wonderland.
oh no! uh, it's kind of funny though because I guess in a way it's just kind of the idea of inspiration, like someone inspiring you to do something. But the way we portray that in media is to basically make them figments of our imagination and not really there. But yeah, I know the ghost of Lewis Carroll follows me everywhere. It's getting kind of exhausting. Um, but anyway, yeah. So that's that. Any final thoughts on the series?
I enjoyed what I watched of it. It seemed like a really good kid show. I don't know that I would watch it in my free time, but if I had my nephews over and they wanted to watch something random, I would totally put this on for them. I think they would like it.
Oh, I like to hear that because I think this is still like a good kids show. I think kids
It
would still
is.
enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
they
was
might be
fun.
confused at some of the '90s technical, like specific stuff.
Probably.
Like,
A fax
yeah,
machine.
like what's a fax
Not that
machine?
those are completely gone. I mean, I still occasionally use one at work, but they're not really a thing these days.
I had to use one for my college application, I think. And that was, I remember even at that time, I was like, oh my God, they're so outdated.
I
Like, yeah.
because of my job, I put funeral announcements on TV. So I get faxes from one of the funeral homes, and one of my bosses is annoyed because she's like, they should be emailing you those. Why are they still faxing?
Why are they still
I
faxing?
don't know. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
But yeah, it's so, I mean, there are some like things that they're probably gonna be like, what the heck is that? But I think this could still appeal to kids.
Yeah, and really with something like that, if I was a kid today and had no idea what a fax machine was, I don't think I would even bat an eye. I would just assume it's some fantasy Wonderland thing.
That's true. That's a good point. I probably would just assume, like, I'm thinking about it if I was a kid watching that now. Probably would just be like, oh, it's a Wonderland thing. They do have some Wonderland inventions throughout the show. They're just like, that doesn't make sense. I guess it's a Wonderland thing.
Well, especially the way the Queen's thing was decorated with all the
Yeah, that's true.
jewelry all over it.
Ironically, the Rabbit had a flip phone before flip phones were even the thing.
Really?
Yeah, he had a cell phone.
Huh.
But it was just meant to be kind of like a plot device so the Queen could call him while he's out and about. Not because they
Interesting.
were like predicting cell phones, but they ended up accidentally predicting cell phones, and it flips open. It's just
Well, I
like,
think cell
what
phones
the?
were a thing at the time, but they were like giant things
Yeah,
that
they were
you couldn't fit in your
bricks.
pocket.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. Patrick also held on to it and ended up selling that as well to the same person who has the rollerblades. I'm not jealous. Um, so yeah, I really like this show. It's kind of my cozy show in a way.
I could see that.
Yeah, it's just like if you pointed a gun at me and told me I had to choose an Alice adaptation to live in, I think it'd probably be this one. Um, just
I mean, that's literally the friendliest one we've seen.
yeah, I mean, like 1985 is probably a little bit more sentimental, but I don't think I would actually want to live in that Wonderland. This one, I love the characters and how they're portrayed, and it's kind of like the most similar to quote unquote real life in the 90s. But I feel like I would get along enough well enough. I mean, they apparently have them all and doctors and stuff, and that's what's important, right? Um,
Yeah,
so yeah, it's my cozy show, and I think it's not perfect, but everyone did such a good job on this, and the cast is so great.
hmm
And yeah, so I really like this show, and I hope other people try it out. It is more than the O.J. Simpson episode, please.
I mean, the O.J. Simpson episode is not really technically even part of it because it never aired. So,
That's true. I think it does have. I think I did give it an IMDb page just to be like technical, but yeah,
I
it is
mean,
not aired.
it exists,
Yeah.
but it's almost more of an idea than an actual physical thing.
It's that is kind of interesting, isn't it? It's like concept of an episode.
Yeah,
But anyway, yeah, I wish more people would give it a chance.
I think people are. I think like I keep see I once in a while just see people reference it on the internet. So,
Really? Well, that's news to me.
I mean, it could be because I've
It's probably because of defunct TV
oh,
or
true that
defunct
too.
land. Yeah.
Or just my algorithm because I search Alice in Wonderland things for episode ideas. Maybe I'm just being subliminally fed this randomly sometimes.
Yeah, but I am actually genuinely glad that the show is more accessible now.
Hmm
Back when I was more into it, like in the early 2010s, like I would have never imagined that it would be accessible on a streaming website
hmm
because Disney like just refused to acknowledge it existed. Like we would try to do petitions, and at that time you would email Disney to like indicate an interest in something in their vault. Like you basically just be like, "Hey, you have this in your vault. If you're ever interested, I'd buy a DVD of it." And that's the most you could really do.
hmm
And just, oh God, trying to like contact people who had episodes of this on VHS tape was a nightmare
mm.
because collectors are nightmares in general. So yeah, I'm really glad that at some point I was just like, I'm never going to see these episodes ever. So to have that be the opposite come true is insane to me.
hmm
And I actually genuinely think the defunct TV video helped.
I'm sure it did.
It helped. It showed that there was interest in the show. Like even Tom mentioned it to me when I was talking to him. And I was having this moment where it was just like, oh my gosh, like some by the way, I am like technically credited in that video. It was a project I did with somebody else called T for 10 where I did like a bunch of newspaper archive research, trying to find anything for this show, and
hmm
talking to people involved. So it's like nuts to me because I ended up stepping away from that, and it's nuts to me that ended up being a part of a video that ended up like being big enough to reach Disney and be like, oh, let's put it up online. Why not?
Hmm.
Nuts. And also, best case scenario, they haven't removed anything from YouTube.
Yeah,
Because I was thinking, like, oh my gosh, maybe the bloopers actually will get removed now. But no, they're still up.
that's good.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose that's probably good a place as any to stop since we've been talking for 3 hours.
I'm sorry. Maybe I should have not chosen so many episodes, but there you
No,
go.
that's fine. I mean, I needed a good flavor of the show anyway, since
Yeah.
I didn't remember much of it. So it
Mm.
was good to watch a lot. And I think I watched more than you even suggested. So
Well, thank you for asking me to talk about it. I'm always happy to talk about it.
yeah, I mean, not many other people are going to know as much as you about the random Alices that we're interested in.
Yeah.
Well, until the next time, do you want to let people know where they can find you if they want more from you?
I'm Phantomwise on YouTube, and I'm also under Love Gift of a Fairy Tale on YouTube as well.
Okay. Well, we will see you next time.
Bye bye.
Thanks for listening to the Disney Movie Marathon. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe and follow my co-hosts as well. My link tree and all of our links will be in the description below. If you want more of my content, all my podcasts are available on YouTube as well as most podcast platforms. If you enjoyed this show, check out one of the other podcasts or check out my Patreon for bonus and extended episodes you won't find anywhere else. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening and we'll see you next time.